I felt that I had to go a bit deeper onto the MDU side. I think it's too easy to say, well, MDU is one thing. It's not one thing. It's quite difficult. I think, and the biggest challenge by far is the installation side of it. So we've split it up: low rise, medium rise, and high rise. And I will show you a few pictures, I think, to substantiate that the installation is a challenge. So there's not one solution. I think I've already spoken with a few people this morning and they said there's not one solution, and probably the solution will change any time we go into a building. Maybe not to a large extent, but you know, to get the things done, you need to be flexible at all stages. The low rise, which I think is quite typical for Western Europe. Medium rise and high rise. High rise is, especially in apartment buildings, is something that you'll quite often see in Asia. On top of that, just to make it even more complicated, we need to think about what technology. Is the fiber going to be terminated in the basement or in the apartment? How am I going to install it? So as an investor or a person who needs to take care of the installation, there are many things to take into account. So the obvious question that you would ask me is, okay, so what do I do now? So what is the best solution? I think we've developed a white paper which will be published in November this year at the IWCS conference in the United States. And we have done some cost modeling and said, well, let's assume, you know, we have an uptake of 100%. We have a number of buildings with a specific height. We've put numbers in there, and obviously numbers can always be challenged, but I think it gives a good start to a discussion. We looked at typical elements in any MDU environment: splicing units, distribution points, the extent to which you can pre-install. And that basically led to a situation that for anything with less than 10 floors, and I'll show you a bit more detail on that, a rapid fit solution, as we have called it, is quite ideal. It basically means that a lot of things are pre-fit. So in an ideal world, you come into the apartment with your, excuse my the example, but with an IKEA box with everything in it, drill the hole. In some countries, you can put the cable or duct or whatever you use on the outside of the outside wall of the house. You can do the same thing inside in a riser environment using a street cabinet or a termination box. There are also options that you start at a mini pop and again do the same trick. So with one situation or one scenario, you could probably come up with 8 or 9 different alternatives. Okay, so you probably say, well, interesting or not interesting. I hope it is of interest. What are the challenges? I think if we look on a day-to-day basis, space and access to space is an absolute challenge for installers in the field, and you'll see that with a few pictures. Aesthetic, because there are in some areas very strict regulations about what to do and what not to do. Speed of installation. Again, back to my first statement about time and money. The quicker that can be done, the lower, you know, at the end of the day, the invoice is for the installation time. The other thing is that if we look at projects we do in Holland at the moment, people say, well, I'm not worried about the money. And believe me, that is the case. I want to have the homes connected as soon as possible, because the target is to connect 2,500 homes in a week, you know, in some areas. So that means that this is absolutely critical. And the third thing, and that has been proven by some projects we have been done, the time that an installer or an installation company spends in the private environment of a customer. If that's not been planned well, or the guy comes up, he brings the wrong parts, he has to come back again and make a new appointment. The amount of hassle that is given with some of the projects in Europe is enormous, so that needs to be absolutely right, and that is a logistical challenge. Said lack of space. So this is a typical environment where people need to work. This is a project which was done in Sweden, where for 40% of the homes that were connected, people could use an existing space. I don't know whether you could call it space, but the existing space. And in 60%, they had to find a creative or an alternative solution in the riser or in the stairway environment. This is this project, 4,000 homes, a big cable brought into a POP, and from the POP there was a cable brought to different cabinets. Probably look familiar, not this one, but you know, the pictures will probably look familiar to you. This is how things went from the POP to the apartment. Here you see that in those areas where they couldn't use the existing space or lack of space, they had to create, basically enable it to go through a stairway environment. Same here, and ultimately being terminated in the customer apartment. Good. We also, and again, I think back to the time thing. Together with one of our customers, we try to put a number on time. And it is from an actual project. So you could probably argue there's a project where it can be done quicker or it will take more time. We found that in this particular project, it took 55 minutes to prepare. You'll see what the preparation means, and you obviously get a copy of the presentation afterwards. The pre-installation, the actual installation, and the post-installation, and again, invoicing documentation. So you can see that some of those things are unavoidable, because at the end of the day, you need to send an invoice, and you need to make sure that the documentation is available. Total time, 165 minutes, of which 80 minutes were on project management. We group those things again. What we believe and what we have seen that especially on the on-site installation and the pre-installation, I think the industry, and the industry are companies like the ones you're representing, but also ourselves, can help to make it easier for installation companies to pre-install products in a way that you can go into the premise and do the connection quicker and better. So just to summarize, providing an intelligent solution for different scenarios. I've shown you with one example that there are 7 or 8 different ways to do an MDU. Time ago I thought about the adding value to the box. Basically, if there's work that can be done in advance, or you can split, because it's not good use of time if a fiber specialist needs to cut pipes or needs to screw boxes to the walls. That's at the end of the day, it's going to cost you more money. Those things can be done by people with different skills and experience. I think that is only better. Which also means that there can be a natural split in some of the activities of the installation that need to be done by true specialists and by people who have experience in the installation of the infrastructure itself.
Thank you. Any questions? We'll have time to think about it.